What's the weirdest thing a medical professional has casually said to you? I was about 18 when I first had a pilodinal cyst at the base of my spine. It was excruciating, couldn't walk, couldn't sit, just pain all the time. I go into the doctor, they lance and drain the cyst, put in some gauze, and tell me it is going to continue to drain and I need to go see a specialist in a couple of days. The first day I feel so much better, pressure is gone, and I can move normally again. The second day, some pain is back and I am getting concerned again. The third day, everything is worse than before and I head into the specialist and tell him so. So there I am, bent over this table with my shorts around my ankles when I hear this doctor exclaim, "Holy crap!" So I naturally assume I'm going to lose my whole butt and everything is coming to an end for me. He follows up with, "Did they use an entire freaking roll of gauze?" as he starts to look like a magician pulling a never-ending line of handkerchiefs out of my butt. Felt infinitely better after that, but for a moment there, I thought the worst. I live in Ireland. The surgeon who replaced my hip is also a farmer. The day before I was due to be discharged, he came in on his rounds. He said, "I may or may not see you tomorrow, it depends on the dog." So I said, "Okay, what's up with the dog?" He told me the dog broke his leg and was having it set tomorrow, but he wasn't sure what time. So I said, "Sure, bring in the old dog and I'll mind him." This is rural Ireland, bear in mind that I was in the convalescent area of the hospital by then. Shortly after breakfast, he arrived with the dog, a lovely border collie with his leg in plaster. He stayed with me watching TV until the doctor was finished replacing another hip and was ready to discharge me so we could all go home. It could only happen in Ireland. At an out-of-town rehearsal dinner for a wedding my family was attending the next day, my husband and I were setting up a pack-and-play for our youngster. The rails weren't locking into place, so we each grabbed a corner to fix it. Before I could get my hands in the right position, my pointer fingers went under the corner caps that cover the hinge area. My husband, who's a strong weightlifter, pulled on his end as hard as he could. Left pointer fingertip was nearly severed, and my right fingertip was crushed, with the bone fractured but still attached. The pack-and-play was covered in blood, people freaked out, but I didn't pass out or throw up. My husband immediately rushed me to the nearest hospital. After some waiting, the doctor began reattaching my fingertip. While doing one of the stitches, they casually muttered, "Whoops, I'm just going to kind of tack it on, it'll probably hold." The whoops really did not inspire much confidence. As I left the emergency room, a different medical professional said to me, "Oh wow, they saved it. We were sure you were going to lose it. We even placed bets." I was stunned, but despite everything, I still managed to stand in the wedding as a bridesmaid the very next day. I was living in Switzerland about 15 years ago and had a cold/flu type illness. I went to the doctor and he came in eating a bowl of cereal, which was already weird. He checked some things and said, "Do you know what acquired immune deficiency syndrome is? AIDS is?" I was in complete shock and replied, "Yes, I do." He followed up with, "It's a virus and there's no cure." He went on to explain why there is no cure, all while I was seeing my life as I knew it flash before my eyes. Finally, he ended with, "But you don't have that virus. You have a much different one, much more common and treatable." I wanted you to understand why an antibiotic wouldn't work. Still in shock, I asked, "So I don't have AIDS then, right?" He replied, "No," and walked out. What a roller coaster. A nurse of some kind took my blood pressure. He said what the numbers were. I asked, "Is that good?" He said, "I'm not qualified to give you a professional opinion on the matter. You should ask your doctor." I asked, "But like unprofessionally, is that good?" He said, "Unprofessionally? Well, in my purely personal opinion that I am sharing with you as an individual and not in any medical or official capacity whatsoever, you should buy stronger deodorant." For clarity, I was definitely stinky. I was homeless at the time. I was well aware of this fact. If you're worried you're a little funky, don't. You would almost assuredly notice if you smelled really bad. Wait, did he say he wanted to be awake? When I was in the operating room waiting to get my appendix removed, I met the anesthesiologist and asked him to make sure I didn't wake up in the middle of it. I didn't want to be aware of what was going on. He counted me down, and right before it all went black, he said this to the surgeon. I remember thinking, "You ass," and then it went all dark. I snapped both of my Achilles tendons while finishing off a set of heavy leg presses with calf extensions. I didn't close it all the way, and the sled crashed down on me, pinning my legs next to my head. Yes, I was dumb to not use the safety pins. They weren't there. They constantly disappeared to other machines, so I was lazy for not using them and paid the price. The doctor looked at my scans and said, "These are mirror images of each other. You must have good form." My gynecologist was trying to remove my intrauterine device, IUD, when the strings weren't visible and fishing through my cervix with local anesthesia, thank God. Come here, kitty kitty. In all honesty, I think he spaced out and was very concentrated to avoid unnecessary pain. Uterus wasn't happy with the invasion, and he most definitely has cats, and words just came out. He burst out laughing with embarrassment and said sorry more times than I could care to count. Honestly, I thought it was hilarious. I've been seeing him for a long time for many IUDs, and he's a gem. I was 18 at the time and went to the family doctor that brought me into the world. The reason was I was having great pain urinating and was leaking a pus-like substance. After getting a shot, I went to his office, I sat down, and he lit a Winston, rocked back in his chair while taking a big drag and said, "I'm going to talk to you like a Dutch uncle. If you do not know it is clean, keep your goddamned zipper zipped up." My obstetrician gynecologist was about to start sewing me up after a cesarean section when she noticed a cyst on my ovary. She told me it caused enough torsion to twist it down and started growing to my uterus, then said to my husband, "Look how twisted this is. Don't worry, this will only take a second and I won't charge for it," while proudly displaying my entire reproductive system with both hands. He's a trooper, didn't look grossed out or anything, just a very deadpan, thanks for not charging us for that. When my girlfriend was in the intensive care unit, one of the nurses sort of shrugged and said dismissively, "She's going to die anyhow." She should have. Her kidneys had completely shut down and she was so swollen that her tongue wouldn't fit in her mouth. We were making the decision whether to continue life support or not. She didn't die. A month and a half later, she walked out of the hospital and into my car for the ride home. I was on a 72-hour hold following an attempt on my life on the anniversary of a traumatic event, and had a nurse ask me if she could pray for me. I'm not religious, but I thought it was nice, and it was like 2 a.m., and I was tired, so I said, sure. She proceeded to pray out loud for like 30 minutes, asking Jesus to forgive me for the huge sin I had committed. Not the direction I thought she would go, lol, but just said a very awkward thank you after and went back to sleep. I was getting my blood drawn for a mononucleosis test back around 2006. The older lady nurse asked me what sort of music I liked. I figured she was making small talk to get my mind off the needles, so I rattled off a few bands I'd been listening to. One of them happens to be Postal Service. She says, "Oh, I know that one." I reply, "Yeah, it's the same lead singer as Death Cab for Cutie." She says, "I know, he's my son." When I was 12, I had a dentist say, "Hold on, I think you might be counting wrong. You shouldn't have those yet." Okay, never mind. Those are definitely your wisdom teeth. Your mouth is just huge, I guess. They said it was the youngest they've ever seen anyone get their wisdom teeth. They called in every dentist in the building to come look at my mouth. At the age of 14, I went to my doctor since I'd been having problems with my hands tingling like they were asleep. Sometimes it would go all the way up to my elbows. It didn't really hurt, but it was seriously irritating me. I explained the problem to the doctor and asked if there was something she could do about it. With a complete straight face, and having asked me no follow-up questions, she tells me, "You could stop being an alcoholic." Apparently this tingling stuff is a symptom of alcohol abuse. At the time, I was a very innocent 14. She then asked me if I would like help telling my mother about my problem. Awkward silence ensued, and I got up and walked out. Fast forward to when I was 20 and got a new doctor when I'm at college. Turns out I've messed up liver enzymes, and that was what was causing the problem. A change of diet, and it has almost completely gone away. After college, I began suffering asthma attacks. I didn't have a doctor, so I went to my pediatrician to get an inhaler prescription until I could find a new doctor. The nurse led me to a room, told me to undress, handed me something, told me to put it on, and left. I stripped down and started to unfold what turned out to be a square piece of cloth with Sesame Street print. After several unsuccessful attempts to tie the cloth around my waist like a towel, I began experimenting with other possibilities. Just as I began tying the cloth around my neck like a cape, a female doctor opened the door, saw me naked, saw said cape, yelled, "OMG," and fled the room. After a few seconds, she asked through the door, "I thought you just needed an inhaler." I replied, "I do." The nurse told me to take off my clothes and wear this. I turn and catch myself in the mirror just as the two of them start laughing behind the door. My surgeon. During surgery to replace pins in my broken finger that had been pushed out by my own body, said, "I'm really getting them in there this time, you little freak of nature. If you do not mind, I would like to show everyone pictures of your tonsils." According to her, I had the most disgusting tonsils she had ever seen in her years in the business, and gosh darn she wanted to show them off. My previous obstetrician gynecologist came through my line at my old job. For some reason I blanked on who he was. Like I knew him, but for the life of me I couldn't remember how. He saw I was struggling and said, "Don't remember me? I'll give you a hint. Last time I saw you, you were in my office with your ankles in the air." Loudly, in front of a line of little old ladies fresh from church wanting to buy flowers from the garden center. He was an amazing doctor and figured out what was wrong with me when no other doctor could, but in that moment the embarrassment could have killed me, lol. After destroying my knee riding bicycle motocross at 17, the emergency surgeon said, "Wow, really fricked that up." 10 years later, another serious knee injury from riding. I saw the same surgeon. He did a great job on the first one. First words out of his mouth were, "I remember you. Fricked up the other one, huh?" As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts, reactions, and of course your own wild stories in the comments, and here's another video YouTube thinks you'll love.